Let's go ahead and work on the feet of our character. Let's first rename our hand here just to keep things organized a little bit. Let's go to our body and let's go to our sculpt mode. Hide our hand. And you can see there's a little bit purplish color there. But we don't have to worry about too much about that. Let's go to our feet. And we're going to have to mask our feet here because we are going to separate this from the leg. So what I like to do is I just like to separate the feet maybe up to here, just around this area, cut off around that area, because I want to include the ankles with it. So that's what you want to do. You want to include the ankles with it, and then this around this area is just going to be easier for us to blend in and fuse together later on once we combine them again. And once again, the reason why we want to make a just separate this from the body is so that we could add more geometry here on the feet, so we could add the smaller details without affecting the upper body, because we don't really need we don't need to have any more geometry here on the areas where we just have bigger forms. And let's go to our mask slice new object. There you go. I'm just gonna go ahead and rename this geometry to feet. Back onto our sculpt mode. Time to add our forms. Gonna go to the remesh and bring down the remesh voxel size and remesh that. Gonna go ahead and mask this area out. Going to my regular mask to just paint this area. So just gonna custom freeform that and invert it. Okay, so the reason that we have this and this part is masked and this we can manipulate, because we're gonna have to push this in, right? We need to push that in. That way we could divide the big toe from the last 4 toes. So you can see I'm just using the grab brush to just kind of push that in. So yeah, right there, just adding a little gap there. And that way we could have just the toe by itself and then the last 4 toes together. And the reason why I just want to have the 4 toes together is because I'm not planning to animate each individual toe. And plus we are going to have our character wear the boots. But yeah, if you are planning to create a character and you know the camera is going to be zooming into the feet, whatever it is, type of animation that allows you to, that, you know, requires you to zoom into the feet, and then you're going to show your toes, animate, and maybe have it do some interesting stuff, then yeah, fine, you could create separate toes. But it's rare that you're going to have a character in any animation or even games where you zoom into the feet area. So most of the time, really, in the industry, this is what's done. This entire thing is just kind of together and the toes is just separate. And then just remesh that. And just gonna inflate and remesh because there's a little bit too much dip in there. And smooth it. Remeshed. And then kind of scrape that area. And I add a little bit of bulk here. To just kind of get the shape down here really quick. Going back and forth between the clay strip brush and the inflate brush, and then just remeshing it. And then push this clay in. right now, thinking about where the cutoff line is going to be for the areas that's going to be bending for the toes. And then yeah, later on we're going to add our 4 toes here. And then using the clay strip, just adding the fatty pads on the bottom of the feet. Just move this here. Okay, so when I'm looking from the front view of the toe, we have more of this shape going from the front. And then around this area is going to be a little bit more of a rounded square. So around the part of the feet where it touches and makes contact with the floor, those areas are just going to be a little bit flatter because of the weight of the character. And yeah, just it makes sense that the area that are contacting the feet are going to be flat. Okay. And yeah, this part is just think about the roundness at the top here. So you right there, and just kind of pushing that forward a little bit and adding a little bit more roundness there. Yeah, so from the top, we got this shape going already. We got it round, a little bit pushed in, and then out again, and then pushed in subtly, and then out, a little bit curved. So we got the shape going already. I'm gonna mask the toe out and soften the edges here and invert it. I'm gonna go to my, I'm just gonna bring this out so we can see all of the meshes sculpting brush. Let's go to our set pivot to mask border, and with our rotate tool, we're gonna rotate this a little bit in the Z direction. There you go. And then kind of using the grab brush, just gonna move this so it's not too close to the toes, the 4 toes over there, and then unmask. Okay, now back on this particular part of our feet, the 4 toes area, and to the side of the feet here. So I like to use the scrape brush here. If I see something that looks a little bit too squarish, I like to use the scrape brush to just kind of get rid of some kind of hard edge there. That way I get a little nice more of a surface there that I need. Okay, so what I've done right there is just adding this a little bit of bulk there, because if you look at the top of your feet around that area, just kind of right near your ankle here in the front, there's a little bit of an egg shape part there, and that's the type of shape that I am thinking about right now as I'm doing this. Thinking of that little muscle there. And we also have this nice little shape here. Got some muscles around this area. And so I'm adding a little bit of that indication there. Okay, now onto the clay strip brush again. Going to slowly create the forms here for our 4 toes with a clay strip brush. And onto the side view, looking here. Make sure you look at the reference of feet as you are creating this. Just simply looking at my video is not enough. I show you exactly how I do it, but it's good to definitely have real life references in front of you. You can even take a picture of your own toes, your own feet, or you have yourself right there, a good reference to use. Real life reference. Yeah, so right now, I use my draw sharp brush to just carve in the clay here to kind of indicate the individual toes. And we are going to have, around here, we're going to have a little bit of fat pads around that area. These are fat pads. And yeah, the bottom of the feet, lots of fatty tissue. The bottom of the feet, and at the top is going to be more of bones, tendons, and muscles, similar as with the hands. The palm of the hands, you're going to see more fat, and at the top of the hands, you're going to see more bones, muscles, and some tendons. And here, just pushing the clay in. And I'm just going to go ahead and remesh this, bring down the voxel size so we got a little bit more geometry that we could mess around with. As you could see, when I have remeshed it, it had created like some geometry here that kind of fused these two toes together. And I just kind of undid that. I'm going to go back and remesh it later. Right now, I just want to add a little bit more information and then bring down the voxel size and remesh it again. Okay, right here, I'm going to go ahead and bring down the voxel size to 0.02 so we got more geometry. As you can see, it's no longer fused around the toe area and the first part of the foretoes. And I'm just going to smooth that out. So if you look at your big toe right now, yeah, just look down on your toe right now. You have this kind of shape going, and then you got kind of this division, and then you got this. So you got this and this, kind of like creating this shape here, and then there's a little gap there. So here, just thinking about where the nails of the toe is gonna be. Just push that clay in around there. Pushing that in. Using the grab brush. So I'm pushing the clay in to kind of indicate where using the clay strip brush, pushing the clay in, kind of indicating where the nails are going to be here. And when I am doing this, using the clay strip brush, you see I'm kind of adding some bony landmarks there. So if you look at your toes and you just kind of bend your toes like around this area, you're going to be able to bend that area, right? Just going to bend like right here. And from then on, you're going to, there are two bones here on the big toe, and then on the toes here, the little ones, the little toes, we got one, we got two, and then we got three, this little tip of the bone here. So this is basically what I am thinking of as I am creating the shape of the toe. Just think of the bony landmarks as you are doing this. And of course, around this area also, we're gonna have like the bigger bones around here. And then we're gonna have some tendons on top of those bones. So it's kind of like a similar concept as the fingers in our hands, filled with bones, filled with tendons at the top. Yeah, so this is what I'm thinking about as I am using my clay strip brush to add those shapes, just thinking of the bony landmarks. Okay, so right here, just adding that bony classic bone shape to it. So when I am using the glacier brush to just kind of add the bony landmark here, I am just kind of thinking of this bone shape. All right, so that's the bone. Right, yeah, I'm just thinking of the shape as I am using the glacier brush to just kind of add these bony landmarks. Just a subtle classic bone shape. And pushing that clay in with a draw sharp brush, carving that in. I would say that feet to me back then was one of the most complicated parts that I have to draw and sculpt, because the feet is just always hidden. Like everybody wears shoes. It's not something that you could study often in real life. Like I thought that even doing hands is even easier than doing the feet. Hands to me was also something that I struggled with, but it's not to me. It's just feet is a little harder because it's not 100% visible all the time. Yeah, well, you can't really study people's feet when you're in public, you know. And yeah, so right now I am just adding these tendons going onto the toes and onto the four toes here, using the draw brush to do that. And onto the glacier brush. And here I'm just adding a little bit of break here and there. Okay, and looking onto this side, the inner part of the toe. Probably could add a little bit more shape here. Using the draw brush, you're just gonna bulk this up. And the clay strip brush to add a little bit more break here and there. And just carve this in. Once again, just the areas where I'm carving the clay in are the areas where the toe could actually bend. You see me constantly looking from up close and then looking from afar, then up close again. Yeah, it's very important to do that, whether you're doing traditional art or digital art. It's best to look at your artwork from far away, because when you look at your artwork from far away, you could see the overall shape of it and what needs to be fixed. And when you look up close, you could see the details closer. You could see what details needs to be modified. Yeah, right now the nail part look like they're just pushed in, but that is okay. We are going to add a little bit more shape there later, but right now we're just focusing on the actual primary forms here. And you see I'm masking that area out of the tip of the toe and then just smoothing it. And then invert it. Just masking this area out to just kind of further smooth it, and then using my grab brush, just kind of pull that out, make it a little bit longer. And then carving this clay in. There you go, carve that in. And then remesh it. Okay, so going to add a little bit more clay here. There's too much dip going on in there. So adding a little bit more of the volume for the fatty pads underneath the toe area. So at the bottom of our feet, the toes just look like really curled. And so it's gonna look like the fatty pad area here for our toes. It's like almost touching the fatty pads around here on this part of our feet. And at the bottom of the feet there's going to be just a lot of folds, a lot of wrinkles, because the bottom part of feet, it is a lot of fatty tissue and it's constantly being pressed, adding pressure on it because we are standing on it all day. So you can just imagine the amount of folds that's being created on the fleshy part of our feet. And here, using my draw sharp to just kind of indicate where the wrinkles are going to be for our feet area on the side. So you could use a combination of draw sharp to just kind of carve it in, kind of indicate where the wrinkles are going to be. And then you could use the regular draw brush to just kind of add a little volume on those areas here and then just kind of smooth it out. But not spending too much time though on the wrinkles right now. It's just a quick drawing on the mesh to just kind of indicate where they are, so we got a little bit more information for our eyes and our brain to work with. Okay, so adding a little bit of more clay here on the side and the inner part of the toes, inner part of the feet. Okay, so looking from far away, we are kind of getting there. It just needs to be a little wider around here. So we need to have a little bit of this around this area is going to be a little wider, and it gets a little bit smaller around here and then wide again. But this part here around the heel area is going to be smaller, and this area is going to be a tad bit wider. So you can see there using my grab brush, just kind of indicating that. Olay, if looking for the bottom, definitely need some fixing going on here using the grab brush to just kind of adjust the shape of this. Add a little bit up more folds and then smoothing this out using the grab brush to just kind of fix this. So yeah, from the bottom part of the feet, we got this nice little shape going also. Looking from the top, looking from the bottom, looking from the side, very essential. Looking at the side view right now. And just kind of bulking up the heel part. Okay, so looking from the front, I think this needs to be a little bit down the toe area. And to the perspective again, gonna go ahead and mask this part of the feet and invert it. Going to use my paint mask, just paint out the edges here. Alright, so we only got the top part of the feet here masked out, and then let's go to our scale. I'm gonna go and pivot to mask border. I'm just gonna go ahead and scale this a bit up. It's just a tad bit bigger because I think it's a little small compared to the hands. Scale it up a bit, down, it's a little too much. So once again, you don't want it too big though, where it looks like a Titan's feet. Object mode. Alright. So you just want it just the right size so it could balance his entire huge body. And then back onto sculpt mode for the body. Onto the body again. And gonna go mask out this lower leg. And then going to soften the edges here. Very soft. And invert it. And then further soften this area out with painting the mask. Then I'm gonna go to pivot to mask border and onto my scale. Turn off my mirror for this one. Mask border again, so it's in the middle of the mask. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and scale this just a tad bit up. Alright, just a little bit, not too much. And back onto object mode. Okay, so I think that's better. So just checking this out, make sure everything is fitting in properly with the feet and the leg area. Okay, selecting my feet there. I want to kind of move this down a little bit. There you go. So this does look good because it makes him look a little bit taller. Okay, so just making sure that the lower leg where it meets up with the feet is going to be as accurate as possible, even though they're not yet fused together. Onto back to sculpt mode. Gonna go to my mask border here and adjust the size again. I think it just needs to be a little bit, just a tad bit larger. Once again, nothing is set in stone. Later on, I might even want to go back and scale it back down, but it's best to get the right size as much as possible in the early stage. I think I want to go and scale it down. I think it's a little too large. I think for this one here, I am just going to go to my sculpt mode and go ahead and just mask this part out again because I unmasked it. I want to go and scale the feet again. Trying to get the right size down. So yeah, just by masking this area out and then going to pivot, mask border, so the move tool or the scale tool is here right on the mask border, you're able to use the sculpting brush to just scale down the mesh without having to go to object mode to scale it, which is to me is a lot more convenient. Even though our feet are going to be hidden by the shoes, it's best to get the right shape of the feet down, because if you don't have the anatomy of the feet down, the shoe that's going to be on top of that is going to look strange.